Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. So, something really interesting happened. Mykelti Brown recently sat down with Popsich for an interview alongside her husband Tony, and the two of them talked about a lot of things. Now, I'll be honest, I don't usually watch Popsich or follow content from other creators. But this one popped up everywhere, because so many of you sent it to me. So, I figured, if everyone's talking about it, let's break it down together in case you missed it. The channel Popsich is run by David, who's actually a psychologist. He analyzes reality TV from a psychological angle, digging into the behavior patterns we see on screen, especially things like narcissism and toxic family dynamics. In this episode, David chatted with Mykelti and Tony about several topics: why Mykelti decided to move, her relationship with Meri, what's really going on with Robyn and Kody, and why everyone always seems to tiptoe around the topic of Meri. Now, here's where things got really interesting for me. While I was watching the interview, I got a text from a friend of mine, a woman from the AUB, who actually grew up with Meri's younger sisters. You guys might recognize her from my comment section. Her name's Ellen. She told me she was close friends with one of Meri's sisters back in the day, and she shared a lot about what it was like being around that family. According to Ellen, Meri's family had a reputation for being pretty intimidating. They could be loud, quick-tempered, and honestly, a bit scary. She described them as having these explosive personalities, verbally aggressive, easily angered, and always ready to dominate a room. Ellen even told me stories about being at school, where Meri's dad, Bill, worked as a teacher. She once said she had to hide, maybe under the stairs or behind a desk, because Bill could be violent. She mentioned that he had once hit her on the head, maybe with a ruler or a brush. Ellen always felt sorry for Meri and her sisters because, as she explained, their father was abusive. But at the same time, it was hard to stay close to them because they often mirrored that same aggression. It's like that cycle you sometimes see where kids who grow up with abusive parents end up becoming bullies themselves. That's exactly how Ellen described it. They could be intimidating, controlling, and verbally harsh. So when Ellen texted me during the interview, she said, "This is exactly what it was like to be around her sisters." I totally get what Mykelti went through. And honestly, that hit hard because it really puts into context what Mykelti was describing in that interview. What Mykelti said instantly reminded me of that one unforgettable Sister Wives moment. The scene where Kody and all his wives were out with Joe Darger and his wives. I can't recall if it was breakfast or dinner, but they were sitting together discussing what it might be like if they all lived under one roof again. During that conversation, Kody made a comment that caught everyone off guard. He said that some of his wives had described sharing a kitchen as emotionally abusive. The second he said that, Meri completely broke down. She started crying uncontrollably because she knew he was talking about her. Through her tears, Meri kept apologizing to Janelle, saying things like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it," trying to explain and justify her behavior. It was such a raw, emotional moment. You could feel the guilt, the tension, and all the years of unresolved conflict bubbling to the surface. Meri claimed she didn't realize how harsh she could be, but as she talked more, it became clear that it wasn't just about speaking strongly. She had a pattern: yelling, setting impossibly high expectations, demanding things be done her way, and punishing anyone who didn't comply. She didn't necessarily hurt people physically, but she knew exactly how to hurt them emotionally. She'd mock people, call them names, make fun of their appearance, and use her words to cut deep. If she was angry, she'd taunt, belittle, or even scream until everyone around her felt small. And if you were a child, you'd likely face punishment just to make a point. What's heartbreaking is how, even after all that, the other wives would often end up apologizing to her. Somehow, the situation would get flipped, and Meri would become the one receiving sympathy, even when she was the one causing pain. So when Mykelti described how Meri would explode during family meals, yelling or getting angry out of nowhere, it made perfect sense. She even shared a specific example of it, and you could just feel the heaviness in her voice. Growing up in that kind of unpredictable, emotionally charged environment must have been exhausting. Mykelti then shared something that really stuck with me. She talked about how Meri would sometimes punish them by taking food away. And honestly, that hit hard. I absolutely hate when parents use food as a punishment. It's something that immediately reminds me of what Ruby Frank used to do with her kids, taking away their meals whenever she thought they misbehaved. It's a disturbing pattern, especially because this kind of discipline is common in strict religious communities like the FLDS and AUB, and even sometimes within the LDS. Parents will use food as a way to control behavior, which is so damaging. Sure, a kid might act out, but taking away food? That's cruel. It leaves a child hungry, scared, and ashamed for something that could have been handled with understanding instead. Now, I'm not saying Meri was on the same level as Ruby Frank, but the behavior falls into that same emotional category. It's part of a pattern of control where a parent or authority figure uses punishment that doesn't fit the situation just to assert dominance. And when you grow up in that kind of environment, it leaves deep emotional scars. So, when Mykelti and the other kids call Meri's behavior abusive, I think that's completely fair. They're speaking from lived experience, and everyone who's endured that kind of emotional or verbal mistreatment has every right to name it for what it is. Mykelti even mentioned that most of the kids no longer have a relationship with Meri because of how she treated them. Some still talk to her, but not all, and honestly, that distance makes sense. After opening up about her past with Meri, Mykelti shifted the conversation toward Robyn and what's really been going on there. David asked her why she stopped speaking to Robyn and what exactly happened between them. Mykelti clarified that it's not like they officially cut each other off. They just aren't in contact anymore. But honestly, when someone says that, it's usually just a gentler way of saying there's been a serious falling out. She didn't go into full detail about what happened at the funeral or what the final breaking point was, but from the way she spoke, it sounded like Robyn and Kody were using her, putting her in this uncomfortable position as the go-between for everyone in the family. Basically, since most of the siblings didn't want to deal directly with Kody and Robyn, Mykelti ended up being the one delivering messages back and forth. That kind of role sounds exhausting. Imagine constantly being the middle person between people who are angry or hurt. You end up carrying the emotional weight of both sides. Mykelti admitted that the situation made her question whether she could really trust Robyn. She said she's been learning a lot lately about unhealthy family dynamics and how manipulative people can prey on others, especially when they sense someone's vulnerable or desperate to keep the peace. Listening to her talk, it was clear she's starting to recognize the signs of narcissistic behavior and emotional manipulation. It genuinely sounds like she's realizing how she was being used. Robyn wasn't supporting her. She was using her as a tool to control the family's communication and to soften Kody's image through Mykelti's involvement. That realization seemed to hit Mykelti hard. She said she needed to take a step back because she couldn't tell anymore whether what Robyn said or did was genuine. And honestly, I don't blame her. Once you've been manipulated like that, it takes time to rebuild your sense of trust and clarity. While listening to Mykelti talk about her issues with Robyn, something really clicked for me, especially when she mentioned not knowing if she could trust Robyn anymore. It made me think back to that whole situation with Garrison and the Christmas text thread. Remember that? So, there was this huge family fight about Christmas and the gift exchange. Robyn completely lost it, snapping at everyone, saying they were being cruel and had never accepted her or her kids. She went off on this dramatic rant, made everyone feel terrible, and then ended the conversation by saying they wanted nothing more to do with the rest of the family. It was messy, pure chaos. Later on, Garrison shared that after all of that, he got a text from Mykelti. In that message, she told him that Robyn and Kody had decided not to do Christmas with the rest of the family, that they were going to celebrate alone. You could tell that message really hurt him. He even mentioned that it stung to get that kind of news from Mykelti because she was being forced into this awful position. Basically, Robyn had used Mykelti to deliver a painful message that was bound to cause more division. And of course, that just created even more resentment between Mykelti and her siblings. She opened up about how that kind of mediation caused so many problems. Her siblings were angry with her. She felt trapped in the middle, and over time, she realized she was being used as a pawn. During the interview, David, the psychologist, tried to gently question her, saying something like, "Well, if Robyn was there for you, why does it matter if she also manipulated you?" And honestly, bless him, but that really missed the point. Emotional manipulation isn't always obvious, and when you're raised in a complicated family dynamic, it's hard to see when someone's pulling strings behind the scenes. For Mykelti, realizing that Robyn put her in that spot between her siblings, delivering emotionally heavy messages, was heartbreaking. It's a betrayal wrapped in fake kindness. And that's why Mykelti said she can't trust her anymore. It's not about one fight. It's about years of being made to carry the emotional fallout of someone else's manipulation. What really stood out next was when Mykelti started talking about how she began to wake up, realizing that for years, she had been repeating Kody and Robyn's version of the truth without even questioning it. She admitted that at one point, she had been fully on their side, believing every word they said about the rest of the family. It's something that happens a lot in families like this. When you grow up surrounded by manipulation and favoritism, you start to see loyalty as the same thing as love. So when Robyn and Kody would tell their side of the story, Mykelti wanted to believe them. She thought standing by them made her a good daughter. But what she didn't see at first was how they were using her, how they'd subtly shaped the narrative so she'd defend them without even realizing she was being pulled into their emotional games. She said it took distance, physical and emotional, to finally recognize how toxic that dynamic was. Once she started focusing on her own family, her husband Tony, and their kids, she began to see things differently. She stopped trying to make sense of Kody's choices and Robyn's tears and started focusing on her own peace. And honestly, you could see the strength in her voice when she talked about that shift. She wasn't bitter, just clear. She said something that hit me hard. I can love them, but I don't have to let them control how I see the world. That's such a powerful statement. It shows real healing. It's heartbreaking to think how much emotional pressure she must have felt growing up in that kind of chaos. But now, Mykelti seems like someone who's finally reclaiming her own voice, learning to separate truth from manipulation and love from guilt. It's the kind of growth that takes years, and seeing her reflect on it so honestly was actually pretty inspiring. When Mykelti started talking about her mom, Christine, you could really feel how much love and healing has happened between them. She admitted that their relationship hasn't always been perfect. There were years where things were strained, mostly because of everything that went down in the family. But now, there's this deep sense of respect and understanding between them. Mykelti said that becoming a mother herself completely changed how she sees Christine. She finally understands the kind of strength it takes to protect your kids while also trying to hold a family together. Watching Christine walk away from that unhealthy marriage, not out of hate, but out of self-respect, gave Mykelti a whole new kind of admiration for her mom. She also talked about how Christine has become her biggest source of support. They talk constantly, share parenting tips, and Christine is always ready to help out with the twins. You can tell there's a genuine friendship there now, not just a mother-daughter bond, but a connection built on mutual love and healing. Mykelti even said that seeing her mom's happiness with David Woolley makes her truly happy. After watching Christine struggle for so many years, she's finally with someone who treats her right, someone who makes her laugh, who values her. That's something Mykelti said she prayed for. It's beautiful to see how the cycle of pain in that family is finally starting to break. Mykelti's learning from her mom's courage, setting her own boundaries, choosing peace over guilt, and focusing on raising her kids in a home that feels safe and loving. Toward the end of the interview, Mykelti talked about what she's learned through all of this, and it honestly felt like the perfect full-circle moment. She said she's finally reached a place where she can see the family drama for what it is, without getting pulled into it. For the first time, she's choosing peace over obligation. She mentioned how, growing up, she always felt responsible for keeping everyone connected, like she had to play mediator or make sure no one was upset. But that constant emotional juggling took a toll. She realized it wasn't her job to fix people who didn't want to be fixed, or to force relationships that were built on guilt and manipulation. Now, her focus is on her own little family, Tony and the kids. She said they bring her grounding, love, and laughter in a way that reminds her what truly matters. She wants her children to grow up in a home filled with openness and safety, not silence and emotional games. That's the kind of generational healing she's working toward, breaking cycles of pain, so her kids never have to feel the confusion she did. Mykelti also said she still loves her dad, Kody, and even Robyn, but from a distance. She's accepted that love doesn't always mean closeness, and forgiveness doesn't require blind trust. It's about letting go of bitterness while still protecting your peace. You can tell she's in a much healthier mindset now, more grounded, more self-aware, and finally living life on her own terms. After everything she's endured, the emotional manipulation, family tension, and public scrutiny, Mykelti has come out stronger, wiser, and free. It's honestly inspiring to see someone who grew up in such a complicated family dynamic finally find her voice and use it not out of anger, but out of truth and healing. So, you can check out the full interview on Popsitch. There's a lot more covered than what I shared here. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.